My name's Alan Shaw, and my company is Joinery, and I want to talk to you today about chaining FormBuilder forms into multi-step workflows for anonymous users. So what this means is that we've got an anonymous site visitor comes to my site. I want them to complete several separate FormBuilder forms. And then all of those submissions need to be linked to a single contact in the CRM. And if I can, I'd like to splice in some CMS content pages, WordPress pages, let's say, in between those forms. And also I want configurable sets of workflows for different purposes. Let me show you this. This is a little more. This is our anonymous user. He comes in and he starts with a WordPress page, let's say, a CMS page, and it says, hey there, thank you for participating. Please click next to go to the form. And he fills out a form. And then he submits that, and he gets another content page with some more instructions or information, and it gives him another form. And then once he submits that, it finally takes him to a thank you page. And ideally, what we want is that as a result, that's all stored in one contact record, all of the data that he submitted through those, let's say in this case, 2 separate FormBuilder forms. But there's a limitation right now because, well, there's a pretty reasonable limitation. If you're not logged in, CiviCRM doesn't know who you are, and it has to use dedupe rules somehow to either assume that you're an existing contact or create a new contact. And that's fine. And what it does is it uses the data that's in the form. So you submit, the form contains your first name, your last name, and your email address, and the dedupe rules figure out that you're either this contact or a new contact. Then you read the next page, and then you go to the next form. And when you submit that form, CiviCRM still has to figure out all over again if you're a new contact or an existing contact. And maybe you could work around that by making the user type in their first name and last name and email address again and swearing at them so that they must spell it exactly the same this time. But it's error prone and it's tedious for the user. So we've already asked them in this session who they are, and we've already created or determined some contact for them in CiviCRM in the first form. So why couldn't we have that available in other forms that they fill out in this session? Now, as a general rule, you couldn't just say that all the time. When the browser's open, you always assume that you know who this person is. But if I want this kind of workflow, I need something a little better in order to avoid this creating multiple duplicate contacts and potentially putting data on each of those contacts. I want it all in one contact, and I want to know that they went through this workflow together. This is an actual use case that an organization that's working to prevent teen pregnancy in Texas. And when a young person comes to a clinic, they have waiting time in the waiting room, so the clinic staff will say, hey, here's a QR code. If you scan this, it'll take you through a few steps, and you answer some questions and watch a little video, and then you'll get like a gift card to somewhere at the end, right? So they scan the QR code, and they see a welcome page that says welcome, and then they get a form, and it asks them about their name and also thinks about their age, because if you're not in the right age span, you're not a candidate for this program. So if the validation there, after you submit, if the validation fails, it'll just kick you out and say, thank you for participating, have a nice day, right? But if you pass the validation, then it'll take you to another form that asks you like a pre-survey. And then it'll take you to a page where you have some choices. And I'll demo this a little more in a minute. But on this page here, there's actually a choice. And we give them 3 choices of what the next step is, and they can choose A, B, or C. And those are content pages. And then when they continue, they just all get wrapped up to the 4th step. So you can see there's some complexity here. We want to be able to mix in CMS pages with FormBuilder forms and have it all tied together into one contact. So this is it. This is their landing page where the young person in the clinic waiting room maybe would scan the QR code and they would get this begin. The orange begin button there is placed by the Stepwise workflow extension, which is managing this workflow experience. When they click begin, it takes them to the first form. There's that demographics form, name, and other things, including birth date, and then we determine their age. And again, here's where that validation happens if they're not in the right age group. So when this form gets submitted, CiviCRM does its thing and stores that data in a contact and an activity. Yeah? Then it does that validation and either sends them to have a nice day, you're not qualified for this program, or it sends them on to the next page, which is a pre-survey, because the program here is to have the young person watch a video about ways to prevent pregnancy. And we're going to find out, first of all, what do they know about ways to prevent pregnancy before they watch the video. They're going to fill out this form. By the way, these forms are dramatically abbreviated for the sake of the slideshow, right? There's like 20 questions or something. They fill out this form, they submit it, and then here's where they get to this branching logic page. And they can choose to watch the video that's English with no captions, or English with English captions, or English with Spanish captions. And they can pick any one of those, and it will take them to the appropriate video page. And then they watch the video, and they click Next. And then they're shown, no matter which one of those 3 video options they chose, they're going to be taken to the post-survey page, which is a FormBuilder form. And it's going to, again, ask them very similar questions to see if they learned anything about how to prevent pregnancy. And then when they submit that, it takes them to this page, which is a CMS page that says, thank you, we'll be in touch, et cetera. Right? And there's the crawler across the top to help them know how far they are in this. When that's all done, we've got one contact in CiviCRM, and this is the contact. It's me, but you'll see, created this thing. And then you can see that there are 3 activities there. There's the demographics form, the pre-survey, and the post-survey. It's because the FormBuilder forms were designed to create an activity. And the way Stepwise Workflows works is it's expecting that each FormBuilder form that it's using will be for one contact and one activity. Right? But those activities get attached to a single contact. This is the admin screen, where we can see that there are actually 3 different workflows because each different clinic wants to use a different mix of CMS pages and FormBuilder forms, different questions that they want to ask, et cetera. For each workflow, there's a unique URL that would be in that QR code for the young person to open up. And there's also, there in the last column, a report link. In this case, we're using CiviReport for certain reasons. The client was more familiar with it, et cetera. But it could as well be extended to support SearchKit. And with CiviReport, then they get an email every week of all the submissions, the workflow submissions that happened in the past week that they can share with the clinic. And it shows the information about the student, the young person, and then you don't see it here, but there are like maybe 80 columns of data. But each person, each young person who filled it out is only represented once because they're only one contact. And all of those activities and the data that's associated with them is extrapolated into columns. That's it. That's what it does. It's called Stepwise Workflows, and it is being launched, I suppose, in the next couple of weeks, right? This has not actually been launched yet, but the first clinic should come online in a couple of weeks. And the extension is on GitHub now, but is not quite published on the extensions directory. But I wanted to let you know that this kind of thing is possible. And that's all I got. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, I don't think we have time for questions, actually, but hit me up later.